In 2019, Marvel fans and honestly the whole world experienced one of the most glorious cinematic events of all time, the conclusion of little over a decade of storytelling, Avengers Endgame. We were hyped, emotional, and at the same time heartbroken, because even though it was an immaculate experience, it was sad having to say goodbye to the stories and heroes we grew up with. These were characters that shaped our childhoods, or for some, their superhero fantasies. They made us happy, sad, excited, everything in between. But one thing was still on everyone's mind after Endgame, a question that echoed across the fandom: what's next? What comes after the Infinity Saga? What's next for the MCU now that most of their heavy hitters have bowed out? Marvel gave us an answer in their own way. An answer that reignited the hype, the excitement, the theories, the madness. The next phase of Marvel storytelling would be the Multiverse Saga. A saga that was teased by Kevin Feige himself to be way bigger than the Infinity Saga. A story meant to tackle infinite possibilities, boundless worlds, and a new beginning. And as big as it sounded, as much as it was promised, what we got was actually different. It was something else entirely. The Multiverse Saga turned out to be one of the most underwhelming creative stretches Marvel has ever had. Sure, there were some hits here and there, but overall, the damage had been done. And with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars now set to release in 2026 and 2027 respectively, we are gearing up to see the official end of this era, and likely a grand reboot for the MCU moving forward. And that's sad because the potential of this saga, it was endless. The hype, the possibilities, they were right there waiting to be shaped into something legendary. But the fumble was just too great. But what if I told you there was another way? A version of the Multiverse Saga that would have lived up to the hype, the excitement, and the cultural dominance of the Infinity Saga. The blueprint was there. In Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, and the Fantastic Four first steps, it was hidden in plain sight. There was a storytelling element in those films that could have made the Multiverse Saga work. See, the Multiverse Saga is hated by so many fans, not just because it ruined the MCU, but because from its very birth in the comics, it always seemed like a lazy concept, one that allowed studios to throw any kind of mediocre story at the world and call it canon, or a convenient way to reboot, patch continuity issues, or bring back dead characters for nostalgia points. And that's fine in comic books, because comic books by nature are messy and imaginative playgrounds. But when the multiverse is adapted by a studio like Marvel, a studio that dominated superhero storytelling for almost 15 years, the expectations are way higher. Marvel was the gold standard. They had proven time and again that they could take even the most wildest ideas and make them grounded, emotional, and human. That's why it hurt so much to see how badly they fumbled the Multiverse Saga. The Multiverse Saga was supposed to tackle infinite possibilities, and with Marvel regaining the rights to its missing pillars, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and many other characters, this was the perfect chance to truly explore the Marvel multiverse. We were promised endless roads to new stories, but what we got was a traffic jam of half-baked ideas. Outside of What If, which was just reimagined MCU-centric stories and wild twists while consistently bombarding us with as much Captain Carter as possible, the multiverse in film barely lived up to its name. The MCU seemed to use it mostly as a marketing gimmick. Make something about the multiverse, throw in a few cameos, toss some nostalgia bait in there, call it a day. Now, credit where it's due, the Multiverse Saga started with promise. Loki set up the concept really well. The Lordom at the end though was a bit heavy, sure, but it left us hopeful. We thought, okay, maybe all this would come together later. That every branch, every variant, every crack in reality would mean something by the end. But then No Way Home said one thing, Multiverse of Madness said another, and Deadpool and Wolverine brought in its own interpretation. Every project handled the multiverse differently. Variants, incursions, timelines, anchor beings, each defined differently, often contradicting what came before. The rules felt inconsistent, and when the rules of the universe are unclear, the stakes stop feeling real. Naturally, fans grew tired, because it wasn't just confusing, it was hollow. But I'm not here to rant about what went wrong. You have seen 1,000 videos of that already. I want to talk about how it could have worked, about how Marvel could have told a story worthy of its legacy, a story that truly lived up to the title, the Multiverse Saga. And honestly, I couldn't find a good name for this idea, so I just called it The Multiverse in Perspective. In case you're wondering what I mean by that, let me explain. Spider-Man No Way Home was the first foundation and example of this. A film that, even though messy in places, introduced to us the idea of the multiverse through the eyes of one character being in the main MCU timeline, that is Spider-Man. We saw alternate versions of Spider-Man, Tobey and Andrew, each from worlds that carried their own emotional weight, their own stories, their own histories. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was perspective. Each Spider-Man showed us a different path, a different lens through which we see Spider-Man. It was the multiverse told through character. Then came Deadpool and Wolverine, another story that played with the multiverse. Although filled with cameos, it told something uniquely its own. It wasn't perfect, but it gave us a window into another corner of Marvel's universe, a world with its own tone, humor, and heart. It didn't try to tie directly into the main MCU narrative, at least not completely, and that's exactly why it worked. The only thing that would have made both Deadpool and Wolverine with Spider-Man No Way Home truly live up to the multiverse stuff would have been synergy, where they have one exact meaning to their multiverse instead of just bringing in different concepts. But that was completely fixed, or in a sense, different with Fantastic Four First Steps. That film, whether you liked it or not, which I believe everyone should like it, felt different. From its aesthetics to its world building to its tone, it didn't feel like an MCU movie. It didn't require 20 homework assignments to understand. It stood on its own 2 feet. It felt like we were peeking into a whole different universe. And when that hit me, when that thought crossed my mind, there was only one thing that I could think about. Why didn't Marvel lead with this? Why didn't they tell the story of the multiverse through the eyes of its different world? Imagine this, instead of trying to make the multiverse revolve around the MCU, the saga branches out. Each project tells a story from a different universe. The X-Men in their own world, the Fantastic Four in theirs, Blade in a darker vampiric one, each with their own tone, style, and storytelling roles, yet all connected under one banner, the multiverse. This wouldn't just be a fan service, it would be expansion. It would give meaning to the word infinite, and it would explain things organically. Why mutants don't exist in the MCU yet, why the Fantastic Four are nowhere to be found, or why vampires don't exist in the main MCU timeline, but we were about to have a Blade movie. Because they were always there, just in their own universes. Stories that matter on their own but feel even richer when they collide. And eventually when those worlds collide in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, it would mean something. Because now it's not just about cameos or crossovers, it's about worlds with their own histories, philosophies, and identities meeting for the first time. It gives the collision weight, and when the reboot happens after Secret Wars, it doesn't feel like a cheap reset, it feels earned, a combination of perspectives. Even if Jonathan Majors had stayed as Kang, this still would have worked because Kang himself represents perspective, different versions of the same man across universes, mirroring the same concept on a character level. But now that the torch has passed to Doom as the big bad, it actually fits even better. Doom has always been a man of empire, ambition, perspective, a perfect anchor for a multiverse in chaos, and that's what the MCU's golden era understood so well: setup. Every story mattered because every setup paid off. If the Multiverse Saga had taken this route, telling stories about different perspectives across different universes, each film would serve as a setup for something greater, a narrative web with emotional and philosophical payoff, a reason to care. Because that's what made Marvel magic in the first place. Not just spectacle, but setup, soul, and synergy. It was the feeling that everything connected, not because the character said it did, but because you felt it, you believed it did. The Multiverse Saga could have been that. A story of perspective, of how different worlds, different heroes, and different choices all reflect the same truth, that no matter how many universes exist, what defines them are the people within, and that's why they would fight so much to protect the world. That's the multiverse in perspective, at least my own opinion. But all that are just hopes and dreams dead and gone now, because the MCU seems to be going full in for a reboot. The Multiverse Saga they planned crashed and burned pretty quick. But nonetheless, it's fun to think about what could have been. I think that's what being a fan is all about. But hey, if you made it this far, thank you, you're a real one. Drop your thoughts down below. What do you think about this take? Or do you have preferred a Multiverse Saga told through different worlds instead of just messy cameos? Or better yet, what is your better idea for a Multiverse Saga for the MCU? Let's talk about it in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. But until next time, I'm out.